Sales makes it easy. And I will tell you that because it's like, if someone has doubts that you can build it, but you have people you building whatever you have, that de-risks it, right? If they don't think it's a good idea, but you have sales, like, it's one of those things that it's like the ultimate, like, trump card. It's
All right. So who do we have in the house?
You got Renato Villanueva, founder of Parallel.
Awesome.
Yeah,
How you doing, dude?
good, dude. It's the end of the day, so there's a ton of stuff that we still have to knock out. It never ends.
Yeah, I feel like every time I call you, like, dude, give me like 2 seconds. You're just always on something, bro.
Dude, and you know what? My wife hears that every week. She's just like, "Is there gonna be more balance this week?" I'm like, "Babe, for sure this week because X, Y, or Z is gonna happen," and then other stuff breaks, and it just like never ends.
Yeah, life of founder. Well, we have Riley here joining us from. Where are you joining from?
Sequify.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Cool. What do you do there?
Chief Sales Officer.
Cool. So we're gonna have some fun. Hopefully, 40, 50 minutes of some talking with you, just getting to know your life, your journey, and finding out what you're doing right now. So yeah, like help out the audience understand like what do you do today? What is Parallel? Like let's start there, because I think no one knows what Parallel is. At least not that many people outside.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, we want to. So the goal of Parallel is to make it really easy for a founder to know the what ifs and the different outcomes of what he's planning towards. So like a good example is like before you have product market fit, what the pivot you might make is on what you're building. Post product market fit, the pivot you're making is where you're investing money. So think like today you're going to invest money into X software because you think it will increase retention or increase conversion or whatever it might be. And the goal of Parallel is to kind of be like the Google Maps where if conversion doesn't come in where it's supposed to be, that we can help you auto-correct your plan and say, hey, it makes sense to like pull back resources from this spend because it's not providing the outcome that we actually want. And that was like what our finance team did at Divvy. At Divvy, we helped pivot where we spent our money constantly. Like we'd invested in X tool, an X person, an X project, whatever it is. And the goal was like, okay, if you're going to spend money, why are you spending it? And if you could like help us understand the why, you would always get it approved. And we always went into it knowing that it was a guess.
Yeah.
And the pivot comes from saying at the end of the month, did the money have the outcome we wanted it to? And if not, do we need to pivot or do we need to double down and spend more money onto it? So a good example would be they'll say the head of marketing shows up and says, hey, I need 60K to go to SaaStr. We'd be like, awesome. Like walk us through the outcome. Right. And he'd say like, okay, we think we can get 500 leads. We think we'll convert them at this amount. We think this is the average ACV. So we think we can walk out of there with $1 million worth of pipe and 250K worth of closed customers. We're like, great, let's do it. At the end of the month, what we'd want to do is find out whether that bet was right or wrong. And where in it were we wrong? Were we wrong around conversion? Were we wrong around top of funnel, the amount of demos we'd get? And the question would always be like, did we need more money to make it work? Or like what happened? And so like at an early stage, founders are so used to pivoting from what they should build. And then the minute they're building the right thing, they're going to start spending money on sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And
that's when they almost like forget what they're spending money on. So like
exactly.
Just so I understand this, basically the why of why you're spending any money.
Exactly.
And before and after. So like you're pretty much calculating the risk before you spend any money. And you spend the money, you come back and you look at it, okay, what exact results did you get from it, right?
Exactly. It's like one of those things that like I think people love the like me and my friends love sending the reels back and forth of like LeBron James. And it's like, oh man, I knew Kobe Bryant was going to drop 81 points. I was telling my buddy. And like LeBron James is like made fun of a lot of times because he'll always after the fact be like, yeah, I called it when I saw my son at 4 years old playing. I knew he was going to make it to the NBA. And I think that when it comes to like forecasting, because founders never call the shot beforehand, it's so easy to attribute success to the wrong thing.
Right.
So like they'll be like, oh man, we like doubled revenue last month. But if you didn't quantify how you're going to do it, and after the fact, it's so easy to be like, oh, like it was this, right? And it kind of goes back to like correlation doesn't equal causation, but it's so easy to find a correlation. And so the goal of Parallel is that like we want a founder to go in there saying, this is what we think the future is going to be. And every month us just figuring out how close they were to being right or wrong and like auto adjusting along the way.
Got it. That's so fascinating. I mean, I think there's not really anything I've used personally before talking to you. I was like, I don't even know how to forecast our existing business.
Right. I was going to say, how do you notice people do it before using your platform? What are they doing?
Yeah, they have like an Excel spreadsheet. What we find is like most founders underestimate their runway like 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
Just because like there's like simple things, right? Like Do you by chance know what the payroll tax percentage is?
7%.
Well, yeah, you guys are HR scientists, and I know so. It's like 7.7%, right? And like most founders, they'll like put in someone's salary, but they won't include like workers' comp, payroll taxes, benefits. And so like a lot of times they're like underestimating their expenses. I would say the second thing that we see happen is founders always think the one-time expenses won't happen again.
Mm.
So we'll like they'll put their forecast in and they're like, man, we burned 20K more, but that's like a one-time expense. But then what we're able to show them is like, well, you had 4 months of like one-time expenses. So we should just like bucket some money for surprise expenses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when we show them that, it's like, oh shoot, like if we keep having these surprises,
Our runway is like 3 months.
then our runway is 3
And
months.
that's what happens then, right? Then they're like 3 months down. They're like, oh shit, we need to raise today.
Exactly. And then they're raising from a position of weakness versus a position of strength.
Right. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I mean, I think we'll probably talk a lot more about that throughout the podcast, but let's dive deeper into your background, dude. I mean, you have done a lot of very interesting things before starting Parallel. So one of the things you have done is work for Divvy, which recently got acquired by Bill, right? Yeah, walk
Uh-huh.
us through like what were you doing there and like what was your interest? Like how did you end up in Divvy?
Yeah, so gosh, man, my road to Divi was like kind of wild. I was sitting in the office of Blake Mutterzitsky, who's the general partner, founding partner at Pelion, kind of asking him like, I mean, this is like 2016, kind of asking him, what do I do with my life? And one of the things that he said was like, hey, you should like go work at one of our startups. And so I just started like reaching out to Pelion companies, just being like, can I come work for free? Can I come work for free? I'm asking at this point anyone to come work for free. I just graduated college, but I wasn't able to find a job. At the time, McKay Dunn, who's now at Tandem, he was like, "Oh, I'm doing diligence in a company called Divvy. Do you want to like help me with the diligence? And you could put it as a merit badge on your resume." And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I must have done a really crappy job because they didn't end up investing. But I got connected to Alex and Blake, and I just started bugging them all the time. I'm like, "Can I come work here? Can I come work here? Can I
Who
come
was
here?"
the investor? You don't have to tell us the name if he
Oh well, McKay was on doing the diligence on it,
Got it.
but he was with a different firm locally.
got it. They must have missed out on a big.
I think a lot of the flights in Utah may have missed out for sure.
Yeah. That's
And so anyways, at the time though, between like getting introduced to Blake and actually starting, it was like a little over a year.
yeah.
And in that year, I started doing underwriting at American Express on the commercial side. So like a business wants a credit card
Yeah.
from American Express, I would be the one that get their financials
Oh, it's
and determine whether they needed it or not. That was like coincidentally exactly the role that Divvy needed, because once they started extending credit, they needed someone to help them underwrite. I literally think Blake must have just searched like underwriter, and I came up and he was like, "Oh yeah, this dude's emailed me like 50 times." And so I joined as like the first underwriter. The first $100 million worth of credit that Divvy underwrote was like me
wow.
in an Excel model looking at their financials, which also was like terrifying because like when they
Yeah,
asked
you're
me-
taking all.
Yeah.
You're the one responsible for all the risk.
100%, dude. I mean, there was one loss that we had that made it into every board deck because like it would show like our losses. There's like this random big spike, and it just like sucked that like my mistake was on every board deck
Oh wow,
for almost like 3 years.
that'd be so scary, embarrassing.
Oh, dude, it
Man.
sucked. You know what I mean? And then also too, you have to think about it like,
Well, at least your name was not written on it. So you're good, but
yeah, they wouldn't be like, this is Renato.
So it's your fault.
No, but it was definitely on there like as an underwriting, like a mistake. But luckily, it was before. It was like after the B had closed, and it was like within a good amount of time before we raised the C, to where we were able to be like, oh, this was just like us getting our shit together.
Yep.
And then we were able to raise the C. But yeah, that's how I ended up there. Just like bagged my way, and my experience at American Express like coincided with what they needed.
That's awesome. And then, so you were there 2017, 2018?
2018, and I was there till just last April. And so when I joined, it was like 100, 200K in ARR.
Mhm.
Then I was there till we crossed like 450 million when I left.
Wow.
I mean, it was, and I will say the thing that like, sometimes I'll get asked, like, what is your like biggest regret? And I think I didn't understand how rare that growth was.
Right.
You know, because like now I'm in the chair as a founder where I'm like, you're telling me that Divvy essentially went from like, 100K in ARR to 8 million in ARR in like 6 months. And I'm like, my mind goes to like, man, how can I do that? And it's like kind of impossible, but it was like that rare, but I didn't realize that. Like I didn't get
Yeah.
that it really was like a once in a lifetime growth story.
yeah,
Like even to go from like 0 to $2.5 billion acquisition in 3 years, like that's unheard of.
yeah,
If I would have known, I would have like worked 100 times harder.
yeah. That's crazy how you ended up there by asking for a job for free. from doing due diligence to actually working for the company. And you spent what, 3 years there?
No, at Divvy, I was there for 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, like, I'm a big believer in that, like even just now, there's like a BYU student. Gosh, dude, the dude texted, like, messaged me on LinkedIn, and he was like, "Hey, would love to like find a way to work at Parallel." I messaged back. I'm like, "Dude, we're not hiring anyone." He's like, "But I'd come to work for free." And he like messaged me. Then I was at an event where he was there, and he was like, "Dude, can I like get your number and we can schedule time?" I'm like, "Sure, dude, here's my number." I ghost him. And then finally, like last Friday, I was at an event, and he stopped me and he was like, "Hey, I need you to pull your calendar. You're gonna schedule 30 minutes with me." And I was like, "Dope." And he's like interning for us now. But like to me, it's like we gave him a project, which if he ends up executing on, I would hire him right away. And I think that like when there is like I just feel like you can de-risk
Mm-hmm.
de-risk yourself by just being like, let me come and show you
Yeah.
that I'm worth it. And I think people are like,
I think it's a very unique approach, which recently is like what you have to do, right? You have to put yourself in front of people by offering your skill set without any cost, which most people are not willing to do.
yeah.
I think most people are not willing to take the risk of like, oh, they're looking for what they're gonna get out of it, which is why they just deviate from the purpose.
And I think people are get hung up on like the wrong things. Like
Yeah,
they'll get hung up on titles. They'll get hung up on like their
kind of job they're doing.
yeah. And the reality is like if you join a startup, it's either going to be worth a lot of money or it's not. And like
It's a crypto.
that's
It's
that
100x or zero.
100%. And so like that's what you just like have to care about. So like sometimes people ask me like, what do you look for in a startup? Like what should I look for? And I'm like, is the CEO insane and like super cool? And is like the product that like does the idea of what it can be, is it actually pretty massive?
Yeah,
And like it should be those two things. And besides that, like I'm like, don't even worry about that. Just get in.
yeah,
Just literally get in. You asked me about like what my wife does for work. She's a data warehouse engineer now.
yeah.
But that she started as a CS. Like there was like a small startup in Orem.
Oh wow.
They needed someone in CS. She went there, was able to like learn SQL, and then was able to apply to Divvy to be a data analyst.
Yeah.
But it's like,
She just like moved her work way into it. She didn't like have a reference to get a job exactly what we're doing, right? She learned her way into getting that position.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
what I always tell people. I'm just like, if you join the startup, just like get in
Right.
and you'll figure it out later. And like
Yeah.
that's the point is like you can go in there, there's a million problems to solve. Fix the one that they're immediately hiring you for, but then pick
Yeah.
out of any of the
That's
ones
what
that are there.
most successful people, right? Like you look at their lifestyle, it's like they have done some crazy jobs, which no one knows about. It's like Elon Musk, like he's building Tesla, right? Before he was doing completely something else. He was building a payment merchant processing platform at PayPal. So it's like you never know the story until you actually go through and you keep trying, keep solving problems. That's very interesting you said that. I'm like, it's a very unique approach, which you need to think about where like you have to do something, willing to do anything you need to do in order to get in life, right? Like you can't pick and choose, I want to be a freaking scientist. And only thing you're willing to do is just like go to a lab, right? Like you can't be a scientist just by going through a lab. So that's a very interesting approach, like of how you looked at things of like, just give it a shot, figure it out.
Yeah, and you have to like there's only certain stage companies that works for like Series B and above, like they're probably gonna have like an HR
Right.
person. For stock, it's like
Right.
but like like a seed or like a Series A company, dude, we need help.
Yeah.
We need help. And if someone's willing to come and like just say like, hey, let me show you if I can start generating more revenue for you. And if I do, will you hire me? I'm like, hell yeah, dude. 100 people can come work for free for me. Let's like see if we can blow this up. But that's like I don't know. It's just and I get the rush to like have money,
Yeah.
like, but at the same time, it's like
But it's like the risk you ever take, right? Like it's like if you're not willing to take the risk, you're not gonna get the reward.
yeah, exactly. It's just like one of those things that I'm like, dude, what's like 6 months of working at a startup to find out?
Yeah.
Like, and if you like it or not, and you are gonna like it, but yeah, I don't know. I think people are just not starting their careers the right way. They're like rushing for the wrong thing.
That's what I like about the hat that I always see you wear. It says build. It's all about figuring out how to solve the problems, right? It's not necessarily like I'm coming in to do this one specific thing, because in startup world, it's like you said, there's this fire going on, this thing that needs to have attention, this thing that needs to go get fixed. And it's figuring out, one, do I have grit? Can I go execute on whatever problem needs to be solved? And two, am I willing to become a problem solver, right? A lot of times I actually saw this recently on LinkedIn, some VP of sales at a big company, he posts, he's like, guys, I have a job opening for an SDR and I know my information is public on all these different data providers and I've had nobody reach out to me, but I've had over 100 applications. So you're telling me that you will go the easy route and click apply now and automatically fill this out, but you won't go actually do the work that you're going to come into this company to go and do.
This is exactly what's so funny because on my LinkedIn, you can go and book time with me. Like my talent list
Same.
is literally on there, and I'm always amazed
Yeah.
when I like listed a job. Like for our sales role, we had over 800 applications.
Yeah.
No one clicked the Calendly like schedule time.
They do the easy way, but they don't think, oh, let me take one more step.
Okay, and then there's the other side of it, this one. So I actually Avril posted a job posting in India. This is actually fun. In India, people are opposite, right? Because there's like a billion people looking for the same job. There was 1,000 applications, 50 people booked my calendar. I'm like, dude, I got to turn that off. But it makes sense though. It is crazy like to see the culture difference of like people looking to apply for a position, but they don't want to put the extra effort,
Yeah.
which is way easier if they actually think about it. It's like,
Bro,
dude,
and then also I always tell people all the time, like I can't tell you how many people like on the build hat thing have been like, dude, how can I get a hat? And I was like, swing by the kiln. No one does.
You tell them how to do it,
I literally am
but
like,
it's not easy enough for
I'll give
them.
you a hat. They never show up. And then that's like what kills me is I'm always like, you're literally handing people how to do it and they find, and that's like the thing is like, even when I started at Divvy, I was moonlighting originally.
Yeah.
Cause you're like, we don't have ways to like hire you full time, like, but come at night. I was there every night. You know what I mean? But some people are like, oh, like I'm tired. I'm like, I don't know. I just think there's like times and seasons.
Yeah.
There's like some times you just have to like bust your ass and like just focus on where you want to get to and the work it's going to take. And that means like working late. That means doing very uncomfortable stuff, like whatever. And it's just like, you have to learn to be okay with it. But yeah, dude, like it kills me. Everyone can come get a build hat, come to the kiln.
Yeah.
You want an interview with me? Book time on my Calendly. Like we can do it. But I am very vocal about like we're in office and that turns people off. Like in the last like job posting we did, we're like, you are in office every day, no exceptions. Like we don't bend the rules for anybody.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of turned people off too. But yeah, there's ways to look at it.
It's also, from my personal experience in the startup world, it's the best way to do it. It's the way to be in the thick of it every day, quickest response times, being able to just have that immediate collaboration and really actually push the needle forward instead of more of the quote unquote corporate world of responding within a 24-hour time frame and only talking during these times. Like that's personally why I love the startup grind.
Well, I also think just like part of it's like, I just don't think I'm good enough to manage people remotely. Like, I just think my job as a founder is to de-risk the chance. Like, I have to de-risk everything. So I have to tackle the risks that we die. And I don't want to arbitrarily, or not arbitrarily, I just want to add risks to it. So like the reality is I've never managed someone remotely. So if I hire someone remotely, now I've added risk that my failure to coach him properly will result in him not performing correctly. So like if my job is to remove risk, why would I add risk? And this is like what I tell people all the time. Like there was a guy that interviewed and he was like, dude, I've been a founding AE 2 times. I have literally closed $2 million worth of deals for both of these companies. I've had exits with them. And he was like, I'd love to come work for you. He's like, the only thing is I won't be in office. And I told him multiple times, I was like, dude, if you were in Utah, I'd hire you right now. And he was like, well, you're going to miss out on talent. And I was like, no, like, I just don't know how to coach you. Like, that's just reality is. Like, it's not you. It's nothing against like your style, lifestyle and how you want to do things. It's a me issue.
Yeah.
I don't know how to manage remotely. And if I did, I probably would be like more open to it, but it's just too hard. Like I can't, I'm already trying to figure out how to be a founder. I'm figuring out how to be a CEO, figuring out how to do all this. And so like now I'm gonna have to figure out how to do like one-on-ones virtually, like I just time to do it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Dude, I mean, from Divvy to, so you worked with Divvy, mostly in underwriting, right?
No, so I was only in underwriting for like 7 months. So I did that, but there came like a point where we hired a chief risk officer and there was like an opportunity to go director and kind of like have that be my career.
Yeah.
But that's like risk forever.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wanted to do like corporate strategy, FP&A, because I was like, that's fun. Like I'm seeing them figure out quotas and comp plans and marketing and product. How can I get over there? So I transitioned over there for 7 months. And that's where I spent like the majority of the time.
So yeah, I was going to go into, I think the big piece of the podcast goal for us was how can we educate people on how to value their business and how to think about their business from a valuation perspective. I think most people, which I know who run good businesses, don't really understand how valuation works. So for you, especially because you're a data guy, you look at data every single day. That's your decision-making power, which you use. For people who don't value their businesses, like what's something which you feel like is very important or key elements they should look at when they're either building a business or they're looking to get an exit?
Like in terms of like how they should value themselves, or what do you mean?
Correct. Or like what they should be very aware of, right? So let's say, and then don't think about just startups. Think about any business. So let's say if you have to take it from a very high level, any business which is doing 100K in ARR, 100K in revenue, like what things they should be very careful, which are very important for them if they ever want to get an exit.
I think that there just has to be like insane ability to storytell. Like I think that valuation is literally driven by how you can get someone to believe. Because like we raised a $2 million pre-seed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some people are like, so you raised $2
Could you
million.
talk about that? Yeah, I mean, because I've still never asked you like how when did you raise that and how quick was that raise for you?
So it was honestly like a really cool but shitty thing. So there's another employee from Divvy, and he was able to raise 2.5 million in like a weekend.
Wow.
Right? Now he was like a director of, he's like a director of product, so huge halo effect, and like there's a lot of like points there that they're like, okay, he has the ability to like he knows the space well. He knows they're gonna be in the baking sector, and so he was like, okay, he's worked with the partners. So like anyone that was looking to invest, they're like this guy will figure it out, right? So I quit, and I'm like, I only have like a manager title,
Mm-hmm.
so not quite a director, but I thought I would have a similar halo effect. So I go and start fundraising. First weekend, I get like 300K wired in like the first week.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is gonna be a breeze. We didn't get another check for like 4 months. I mean, that was like
Dang.
that was beginning of April, and we didn't close it around until September, right? And there was like it was one of those things that like, investors never really tell you the truth. The reality is like when you're raising a pre-seed,
Yeah.
they just don't think you're capable,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And there was a concern about whether someone who's only worked in Excel has any idea how to build a product. I had never like directly managed people, so like, can he actually build a team? And the third thing is like, is he actually right? Right? Now, is he right or not? And can he build a team or not? Like, if you can just sell investors that like you will figure it out, that drives like 95% of the valuation. Right? Like when you think about all these companies coming out of YC,
Yeah.
and invest like they're coming out and they're raising pre-revenue
Right.
at like $20 million
Yeah.
post-money caps.
Yeah. It's insane.
But the reason why is they're like, okay, by the time I've gone to invest, A, they've been interviewed by group partners.
Yeah.
B, they've been trained by these group partners for months. And C, now they have the credibility to unlock doors in a way that they never have before. So like, even though they might not be 100% sold on the idea or 100% sold on the vision, they're like, this guy will figure it out. Right? And so like, I think for me, when I started to raise, what I didn't realize is like, I had somewhat of a halo effect from Divvy, but not the one that I thought would.
Get your seat in one weekend.
Yeah, like I really thought I would. And
Yeah.
but also like it also was post the SVB crash.
Ah.
There's all these like, external factors that kind of impacted it. But yeah, dude, it sucked because like I totally like I remember like reading people like, "Dan, get ready to do 50 pitches." Like, bro, I'm 3 for 3 and I have 300K. This would be easy. And we ended up pitching like 60 VCs, And like some of the reasons people said no, like again, they like didn't know if I could actually build a product. The second thing is they had concern about whether the product resonated with people or not. And those were probably two of the biggest reasons why they said no to us. But then we found investors that like really believed in us and in the vision we were building, and they were able to say yes. And so we've loved working with Penny Jar. But yeah, it was like a wild 5 months, because there was a while there was like me and my co-founder were like, okay, that's 300K. And we're like, okay, if we only pay ourselves like 50K a year, like this is enough runway to do X, Y, or Z. But with how complex of a product we were building, we just like knew we needed more resources. And so that like really wasn't an option to raise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we raised at like a $7.5 million post money cap, and like, we were totally fine with it. I mean, like at the end of the day, yeah, here's another thing I would say on valuations is it's either going to be worth a lot or it's not. And like, whether you're left with 400 million or 100 million, you're going to be just fine.
Right.
And that's like one of the other things too, is like, I remember when we were raising, we weren't super happy about the cap. And one of the investors, like a couple of our mentors, they were just like, dude, like if you knew how much of the company I owned by the end when I sold it, like it doesn't even matter. I didn't matter.
Exactly.
Like I'm set for life. And I think founders sometimes get just hung up on their wrong ring.
I think I've learned that over even same here. Like, I mean, same story. I think when I was raising, it was so hard for me personally because I didn't have any experience in like actually coming from Divvy or raising capital for tech. So what was eye-opening for me is like actually what sells is yourself. How can you pitch the story? How can you pitch the narrative? How can you make people believe that you will make this happen regardless of what happens? But then also the other key element I felt it was important for me to learn was investors don't really care what valuation you're raising at. They care how much you want to raise and what you want to spend the money for. So if you have that defined, the valuations get easier because at the end of the day, like you said, you might own 5% of a company by the time you get an exit. right? But if you know exactly what you're raising for, you can control that valuation a lot better. Because most investors are never going to ask you, hey, what valuation would I invest in your company? It'll be always be like, what exactly you're looking to raise, right? So, like you said, I think those are things I never learned until talking to like 50 investors.
Well, then the other thing too that I've like recently been learning a little bit more is like understanding fund dynamics and incentives. So like there's firms that like will literally just say no on the amount you're raising because it won't give them the percent ownership that they want.
Right.
And so that's like one of those things that like if you're raising $1 million on a $20 million cap, that's 5%. An investor might just look at them like, oh, like
Yeah.
we want to own 10%. It's like we just think you're it, but like there's no way this makes sense.
Sure.
And so it's like there's like these small things. Like
Yeah.
I would say the other thing too is like, have you ever been to like those Brazilian steakhouses where they just
Yeah.
bring around meat?
Yep.
I wish there was like they have like a little thing on the table that's like up for green and red, and green means like keep bringing the meat, and red is like stop bringing it. I really wish there was like a version. You know what, guys? Like honestly, we should build this. I wish there was a way to know when investors were actually investing.
Boo.
Because every investor will tell you that they're investing.
Yeah.
A lot of them are not. They're either in the middle of fundraising,
Yep.
they're at the tail end of their fund.
Yep.
They only do 2 deals a year, and they
Right.
already did both of them in the first quarter. And I wish there was like a way to do that because I think in the 60 investors that we pitched, 30 of them we learned like were fundraising,
Right.
and like they actually couldn't write us a check, and so like they passed because they didn't have money.
Yeah.
It's like very convenient to be like, yeah, you know what, we just don't think you're it. I
Yeah.
also don't have money, but like that has nothing to do with it.
Right.
I think it'd be really cool if there was a way, because like you can go to Crunchbase and see who did a deal,
Right.
but that might be like, oh, that's the last deal, right?
Yeah.
And so like for me, like we should honestly build this where there's a way to be like, find out if an investor's no, I'm serious. Tell me you wouldn't pay
Oh, 100%.
like our 200, $500 to be like, did you get access to this platform?
You will save so much time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the investors will hate it, but that'd be awesome.
No, yeah, because I'd be like, oh yeah, he's not like he doesn't have money. Why am I gonna go pay him?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, whoever's listening to this, do this. Send me a safe. I'll invest tonight because, like, I think this is actually a really good idea. But yeah, I think like when you understand dynamics, and then also like little things like the difference between an associate and a principal and a partner and a venture partner and a managing partner,
Yeah.
and just like little things like that. Like I remember one of the first pitches I had, they were just like, "This is so interesting. You know, we're definitely gonna bring it up in our next partner meeting, and we'll let you know." Dude, I remember I drove home like, babe, they're bringing it to the partners. Little did I know that that was like a big no.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I'm just like, he said he was going to bring it up to them. And now I'm just like, oh, that's a no. So there's like, you know, it's funny because like venture deals talks a lot about structures of raises and stuff like that. I honestly feel like you could summarize what I learned on fundraising in like 10 pages, which is like, if they say anything but when can we meet again, it's a pass. That's basically like just the truth. Second is, if they're not like rushing to write a check, then they like might just not have money. Like understand that, understand what ownership percentage they want, understand what funds they typically will back channel with too. Cause like, that's like another thing too is if I would have understood that this investor was going to talk to that investor and ask why, I would have ran my process differently because you want to de-risk it. And if they feel like one of their friends has passed, then they're going to be like, oh, well, he must be seeing something I'm not seeing, so I'm out. So I also would have like tackled when I pitched different people.
Yeah.
Because I think there were some people that said no only because another investor said no.
Right.
And like I didn't understand that
dynamic. Yeah. Because no one wants to take the risk. If someone else saw any risk or any red flag, you're like, oh, I'm going to pass on this.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. It's also, I think it's a very big pressure tactic from VCs. I feel it's like very common, especially first time founders. And I think like I was victim of it for at least a good amount of time, where they would be very, high pressure calls, Zooms, even the, what do you call the last meeting you usually have before you actually get the term sheet? I forgot
Sometimes it is like a partner meeting, but so I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
whatever
like,
it is.
one of those meetings, right? Like the questions, the way they ask those questions, it's like to make you scare and to make you feel like your business not worth as much. When in reality, they just want to find every leverage to either find out how can they get the least amount of money or at the least valuation, or they just want to just say no, right? So it's like, it's scary sometimes as a founders that they don't understand that. I mean, most first-time founders probably never will know that VCs ask those questions separate way to break your confidence.
Yeah.
In reality, it's like if you know that beforehand, you're probably not going to waste your time.
But that's like what's always like such a hard thing is you have to like have some confidence
Right.
in what you have. you know, you and I have played poker
Yep.
before, and it is one of those things that, like, let's just say, uh, like, you can't like, I'm not gonna chase the river if I have, like, a 2 and a 10.
Right.
There's different suits, and, like, the flop isn't showing that there's any chance of me having anything.
Yep.
Like, you wanna have some confidence going into it before you, like, because people can, like, really gauge that really easy, and with
For sure.
investors, what I've learned is that, like, they will find out very quickly
Yep.
if you're lying or not.
Yep.
And there's, like, when I look back at my fundraise, I remember telling this investor, I'm like, "Yeah, uh, so investor we're pitching them, there's a good chance they're gonna lean in," and he was like, "Oh, this person?" I was like, "Holy shit, do you know him?" It's like, "Yeah, I know him really well. I'm gonna text him and find out what he thinks about you." And, like, so then he texts him, he's like, "Yeah, what do you think about Renato?" And he's probably just like, "Oh, I met him, not that interested." And he's, "Oh," and so, like, that's, like, you have to like, even though investors are always, like, looking out for themselves, but you have to have some sort of, like, confidence, but some like, you have to have the cards to actually feel that way, and with us, one of the things that made us feel good was there was, like, 2 pretty reputable accelerators that gave us offers, and there was an opportunity to get another 500K from them, and so Tyler and I were looking in that, we're like, "We raised 300K, 500K, 800K in total, like, as a pre-seed, that's a great amount." But we said no to both of them, and we felt, like, really good about saying no to it, and so it did kinda give us that confidence of when we were raising with investors, we were able to be like, "No, we don't wanna do that," or, "Yes, we
Right.
wanna do that," because it was like, worst case scenario, we can always fall back on this
Mhm.
if we really want to.
Yeah. Interesting.
So now, obviously, you've raised the pre-seed. Talk to me about what it's like working with the financial partners, what it's working like being with the VCs, their input, why them, and how they're going to help you in this next stage of growth.
Here's what I'll say, Penny Jar, anytime I have a question, I can text Bryant, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, can I jam with you?" He'll get on a call with me like that. Like, super helpful in terms of, like, brainstorming. They are, like, we love working with them. It's honestly really cool. Um, as far as, like, the day-to-day, they're not super involved, like, big bets that I'm thinking about, we'll definitely loop them in.
Yeah.
Um, we added a co-founder, and, like, we talked to them about it. Um, as far as, like, the next raise, it's, like, really interesting because whenever we raise next, someone will likely take a board seat. And so it's interesting because when we first raised, we were more concerned about having the money than the right partner. We lucked out in having the right partner, but that was, like, really lucky that it happened that way. Now I'm thinking, who's gonna be my partner this next time? Because I want them to feel like a partner. I think a lot of people fear their boards or they feel like they can't be honest with them. And, like, I want them to feel like I wanna feel like I can call them about anything. And so at this next fundraise, it's interesting because I feel like I wanna know that this is someone that, like, I really wanna work with, and I almost feel like I wanna view it as, like, an interview. Like, would I hire this person to join my company?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I'm gonna approach this next fundraise is I wanna look at an investor and be like, "Man, this is someone I wanna work with. They get what I'm building, they get why I'm building it, they get the approach to why we're building it this way." But yeah, I'd say, like, they've been helpful. Like, whenever I wanna brainstorm, whenever I have, like, really important questions, like some restructuring, whatever it is, like, Bryant and the Penny Jar team, they're on the call with us like that. As I think about my next raise, I'm thinking like, "Okay, I got really lucky with Penny Jar. How can I get that again?" But even maybe a closer relationship because they will be on the board, and I am gonna meeting with them more frequently. And it's kind of interesting, man, because I feel like I understand the structure of, like, a board meeting, but I feel like the structure of having, like, an official board meeting,
Mhm.
I think to me that makes way more sense, like, post that Series B and
A,
above.
yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
at a seed stage or a Series A stage, it's just like, dude, like, we're still very much in, like, the we might do like, yeah, like, we might be totally wrong still.
Right.
And it's like, I want that whoever I choose to fundraise that, like, understands that. But again, you have to also understand, like, fund dynamics because if someone's at, like, the tail end of their fund,
Yeah.
then they're actually, like, they don't want you to take 2 years, 3 years
Yeah.
to build it.
Right.
Versus if you find someone at the beginning of their fund, they're gonna have a year or 2 to deploy that capital,
Right.
and then 3 to 5 years after that to start getting to the next,
Mhm.
like, and so that's where my perspective goes. I'm like, I just want someone that I would want to join my team, like another C-level executive. So that's
Mhm.
how we're gonna approach the next fundraiser, is like, who gives us that?
Awesome. So one piece of advice you would give somebody now that you're about 18 months into building Parallel, right?
Mhm.
One piece of advice you'd give to somebody looking to raise right now.
Sales makes it easy. And I will tell you that because it's like, if someone has doubts that you can build it, but you have people, you building whatever you have, that de-risks it, right? If they don't think it's a good idea, but you have sales, like, it's one of those things that it's like the ultimate, like, trump card. It's like using the word "I feel," but in the sense of like, I just feel like you did this, and it's like, well, I can't change how you feel about it.
Right.
So it's like, what can I say? It kind of like trumps everything. Like, that didn't feel good when you did that. It's like, okay, I guess like that's how it made you feel. I have to stop, you know? In the world of like raising, I just tell founders, I'm like, dude, just get sales, because if that, like, a VC might be like wishy-washy on whether they think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're like, yeah, and by the way, I have 20 paying customers, all of a sudden they're just like,
Yep.
oh, so this is a good idea.
Yep.
Right? They're like, man, but do I think like Raj can actually like build a product? Oh, but here people are using it. Oh, okay. Like, he can think about product development, listening to customers and MVPs. So like, I do want to double down on that.
Yeah.
And so like, my biggest advice to founders is like, nothing helps fundraising more than sales.
Right.
And sometimes I'll be like, well, our product isn't going to be ready until after we sell. I'm like, the pre-sale is get a deposit. Like, call someone. Like, dude, if someone called me today and actually had a good idea, and I'd be like, yeah, I want it. If they were like, dude, I'm going to be fundraising, I need to show them something.
Mm-hmm.
Can you put $100 down as a deposit? If I really believed in it, I would.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's $100? Who doesn't have $100?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this, like, what I try to tell founders is like, there's always a version of seller, right? You might not have the product. Can you get a deposit?
Right.
Can you get a letter of intent? But get something more to
Yeah.
people saying they told me it was a good idea. So like, I don't know. I think that founders get hung up on the wrong thing. They'll get hung up on their slides. They'll get hung up on, like, how to craft the right story to investors. And like, yeah, like, storytelling is a big part of it, but like, sales covers everything. It's one of those things that it's like, you might be a shitty storyteller. Your deck might suck. You might not have the best co-founder, and you might look like shit too. But if you can sell it, then it even validates that you're the man even more, because then they might look at you and be like, man, if this guy who looks like his mom dresses him and is kind of a loser was able to like talk to 10 people and convince them, like, imagine if he had like a coach. Imagine if like we're able to turn him into someone. Like, all of a sudden it's like, if this shit show closed 10 customers on this product, imagine if the product was good.
Oh yeah.
Imagine if the founder was good.
Yep.
Right? And so like, sales just like helps you. It's like the trump card. It's like, oh yeah, I don't know if this is a good idea. Well, I have 20 paying customers. Shit, you're okay. You're right. It's a good idea. This guy can build a product. Well, here you go. People are using it. It's like, they can't say anything.
That's so true. That's so true. And I feel like that's what I think about, even for founders who are raising further down the road. They already raised pre-seed, whatever. That's the money. And like you said, they're running out of runway. They have 3 months left and they can't raise. Best solution, get more revenue.
Yep.
Always, right? Like, even if you're in the last month of runway, spend what you have to get more revenue. You will survive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's even how the way that we're thinking about it, where it's like, if we can close 100K of ARR every single month, we're like default alive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's like one of those things that we're always just like, if we can at least close that, we never run out of money.
Yeah.
But you want to start like double down on like other investments and things like that. But it's like, that's always in the back of my mind, is like, sales will keep us alive.
Yeah. And then like customers, like I think someone wrote a post on LinkedIn about, if you have customers who like your product, the momentum itself will just keep your product going.
100%.
Because your momentum of those customers is what drives you to keep servicing them, right? So that's so crucial. Building parallel, I mean, I think just thinking about all the hardest things you have done, probably a ton of them, probably every single day. What do you think is your biggest motivation to keep doing? And like, I know as a founder, especially with you building this for 18 months, there's so many challenges, raising capital, getting sales. Like, what is one thing you're like, dude, because of this, I don't get what's happening. I will just keep going.
So the question's kind of like, why am I doing this? Is that kind of fair?
Yeah.
So let's first start with saying we want to make money. Okay, like we want to make money.
But I'm to be honest, most people don't say that. That is.
I want to fly in a
Appreciate
private
it.
jet. I never want to look at price tags again in the future, like for sure. Like, you know, I don't have to look at price tags when I go to Walmart, but when I go into Viore, I have to look at price tags. I don't want, wherever the person is at, I want it to go away. Dude, honestly, this sort of comes down to, like, I was never going to be a professional athlete, right? Look at me. I'm not. But there is nothing more competitive than this arena. Like, I'm entering the arena that Mark Zuckerberg entered. I'm in the arena that Steve Jobs entered, that Parker Conrad entered, that Elon Musk entered. Not like the G League. I'm in the same league that they joined. And to me, I just want to prove that I can do that. Like, it's kind of like there's all these like college players that have like the what if, like, man, what if, because like there's always like politics with team, like did the coach like you or whatever. There's always these different excuses, but it's like, okay, what if like tomorrow you had like the physique and could like be in the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to just like go there to compete to see if you could take Luka on one-on-one? And I'm like, and like if someone came to me like, dude, I'll pay you $500 to play against Luka one-on-one, I'm like, he's just gonna demolish me. But it's like, let's say like Space Jam, let's say Michael's Secret Stuff was like a real thing, and I could drink and it can make me just as good. I could play one-on-one. I mean, it would be interesting. So like to me, I'm like entering the arena that the best in the world have entered, and I'm either gonna survive or not. And if I survive, then I am to some extent, not like, again, I'm not on Elon's level, but it's like the most competitive place you can be. So like I am doing this because I want to compete.
Yeah.
Like I want to compete. I can't compete in baseball or basketball, but in the world of capitalism, this is competing at the highest level. Anyone who's a corporate employee, I'm sorry, you're not really competing at the highest level. That is the G League. That is the minors. But to take VC money, you are in the arena, and that's what I wanted to do. It's like the most competitive thing you can do, and if I can figure it out, that says a lot.
I've never thought about it that way.
No,
This changed my whole perspective.
it's an
Think about it.
analogy.
I'm like, wow.
I love it.
No.
First the Google Maps analogy of parallel. Now moving into this, dude. I love it.
Well, it's like it's crazy
great.
because like sometimes I think this isn't like, again, apples to apples. It's a horrible comparison, but I'm like, okay, you know, Mark Zuckerberg with like 100,000 users was able to get an 800,000 investment from Peter Thiel. I raised 2 million. Is my idea more than 2x better than Facebook?
So did I raise more money than Mark Zuckerberg at this same stage?
No, but that's honestly what's crazy to me is like when I sit back and I'm just like, account for inflation and all that bullshit, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, it's
You have the same chance or the opportunity as Mark Zuckerberg did.
Yeah.
exactly.
In the
Yeah.
same field.
It's totally fair.
It's the same playing field. That's crazy.
Exactly. And that's where it's like crazy because it's like no one tomorrow can really decide to be like, okay, I'm going to try to be an NBA player.
Right.
You just can't. You lost the window. Like you can't.
Yep.
This is the only place you can do that. Nowhere else. Right. Like, again, everyone chooses a path that they want to. And some people want to own a plumbing shop. And there's nothing wrong with that, dude. Like sometimes when I look at my neighbors and like this guy owns a plumbing company, makes $500,000 a year, I'm like, man, that looks like a dream. But it's also like not the most competitive thing in the world. I want to do the most competitive thing. And I don't think there's anything more competitive you can do than to try to find product market fit.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That changes how I'm going to talk to everyone today. I'm like, guys, I'm going to be non-boss. Go and talk to me.
No, I mean, it
is actually a very good thing to keep in mind when you're in this space, because then you realize like how much opportunity you have in front of you, right? Like, going back to what you said, the motivation is this. You have this one chance to compete with all these legends in the same exact time frame.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And that's like what gets me so excited is I'm just like, it's finding out if I have it inside of me. Like, am I capable or not?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, dude, you're the man. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.